we've had our little sports moment.
It's out.
Now we got to talk about this book,
done.
boy.
Let's move forward.
This book is serious. I'm just going to read I'm going to read the title, then introduce the author, and I'll try to give you color commentary. The title in big font. It's the biggest font on the front page. Handicap. It's in white. Born Black in America is in black. Then you got the handicap sign, and you got a child. I'd put him at about a 6-year-old, 6 or 7-year-old. Then behind him is a cityscape. Looks like New York City. I believe that's New York. Oh, yeah, I think, or Philly, one of those big cities up north. And then at the bottom, African American struggles in the workplace from slavery to Obama. Wow. That right there is enough to go buy the book, I believe. We'll get into all that stuff. But right now we want to introduce and welcome Ramon Roane to the studio of Another Perspective. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, and thank you for having me here tonight.
Yes, Drea. Drea said, get that mic closer to you, sir. She's such a nice producer. Hey, I tagged you. I just have to upload the picture now, Drea. There it is. But we're glad to have you tonight. We've been trying to hook up a little time to get some interview in and talk about this. This conversation, I think, is going to be a conversation that's critical to even the coming election.
Yes, I believe so.
You know, people want to. What they laughing at?
Oh, that's what that is. Okay.
Is that the noise?
Yeah, let's keep moving forward.
Okay. I was like,
I know what that is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right, Kevin. Photography. Shout out to the photographer. Is in the building. But Kevin, let's dive right in, man.
Let's jump into it because I had a chance to look through the book, and I think you're bringing up a lot of very poignant questions and also giving background on it, Mr. Roane. But what I want to do is maybe get from you, because as I understand, you're a veteran of the Navy, but now you've shifted in some of your focus and in your vocation. And so when you wrote this book, let's get into why you wrote the book. What made you say, you know what, this is something I want to write about and let other people know where I'm coming from and what I see in America?
Okay. Based upon my work history and employment, I was involved. I am involved in the current litigation, but I'm not at liberty to say at this time. Okay. But that right there started it. I mean, that was back in 1999.
Wow.
And I'm always been a history buff. Always loved history, you know, the History Channel, the Civil Rights Movement, the whole 9 yards. Anything with history, hey, I'm all in it. So I started studying history, and especially as regarding to employment, and especially in regarding to our Black history, especially the Civil Rights Movement. And so there was a book called Without Sanctuary, and it was a montage of photographs of African Americans being lynched, and that just stuck with me. Okay, so now with my personal experience dealing with discrimination, you know, that inspired me to, you know, to even delve even deeper, to understanding, you know, our struggle. And like I said, from the struggle from slavery to Obama, you know, at that time when I started researching, Obama wasn't even on the scene.
Okay.
So, you know, after studying it, and I actually wrote 2 books. It's my second book I wrote, but I can't publish the first book. But this book here was really a labor of love for me, and also therapeutic.
Mm-hmm. Right. And diving right in, as you just said a minute ago, you have some current litigation. Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming it's a employment situation.
Right. Race.
Okay. You choose in the foreword of the book, in the title, the handicap, in the introduction, you believe, now this is what you say, you believe that a dog has more rights than a black man. That's pretty big. It's a big statement. Why do you say that?
Well, I looked at the Michael, you know, first, of course, the history. Okay, then you look at the example of the Michael Vick story. You're saying, well, wait a minute. Okay, well, I'm not trying to promote the, you know, killing of dogs, but, you know, that got a great deal of attention. Okay. But on the other hand, 1.3, and this is a conservative number. 1.3 million African Americans are discriminated in the workplace every year, but we don't hear about it. Okay, in 2010, the EEOC recorded the highest number of discrimination claims. It was like 36,000, but that's not even a fraction of the 1.3 million that are being discriminated against every year. So when I said that a dog has more rights than a black man, it's because of the fact that what about the rights of the 1.3 million?
And
That's
I know,
not me.
and I know in the book you also happen to reference something that was actually said by a commentator, Tucker Carlson, I think, was the person, and he happened to say something along the lines of Michael Vick should have been executed, if I'm quoting that correctly, as you stated in the book, because of the dog fighting and the death of dogs and what have you. And I thought that was an interesting point when you begin to contrast what people are saying and trying to figure out, are they really thinking through what they're saying and giving and not thinking that they are not thinking through
Right.
what they're saying.
Right.
You know, it's interesting, just kind of a little bit of a side. I was talking with my wife, and we were talking about African Americans and how we were kind of referencing food, but it ended up becoming a larger conversation of African Americans almost being a people who find themselves betwixt and between their own country of origin. Because there's, you know, when you have voluntary immigrants, they can say, this is still our history. You have a Chinatown. I don't want to diminish this, but there are different parts of Chinatown in New York, excuse me.
Okay.
You know, where it's more authentic and, you know, the real Chinatown versus what most of us think of Chinatown or other, you know, I just using that for an example.
Mm-hmm.
When you say, well, what about African American or African community? You know, what is the identity really? And I think that when you start to dive into this, you almost say, well, where is our identity and where do we really find ourselves? So I found it interesting that you use the term handicap. And I would like for you maybe even to expand on having a handicap or, you know, in America as, you know, because you're born of the same skin, of this skin color.
Well, just a child. And here nearly 50, come September, it'll be 50 years ago that I've been born.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just as a child, you're already marked. Okay. And I won't use the word, but you know, they look at you and the first thing they think about, and many, I'm not saying all,
Mm-hmm.
but they were thinking, you know, is that the N word. Okay. So, and if you have to have it, if you're thinking about from 19 to 1964, okay, and I wrote in a book about legalized racism, okay, you're talking about one segment of the population, African Americans or black, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about that segment of the population. We have to have a Civil Rights Act that was passed for that particular, not for Latin people, not for this, it's for African Americans, because we were legal. It was legal. We're talking about the Jim Crow laws.
Right.
We're talking about the Black Code. It was legal to discriminate against us
Right.
till 1964. Now here we are. You know, do you think that it stopped, you know, at 1964? No, it didn't. So the child that is born, they have that struggle to deal with. Look at what CNN did on Black in America.
Right.
You know, and that is what we have to deal with. Now, do I think that, you know, do I think that this is going to be it? No, I think we can get better, but you know, it's going to take some time. It's going to take some effort from not only African Americans, but from all Americans. And as far as I've never been to Africa,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, so
Right.
you know, I'm looking at, say, look here, I was born here, you know, and I'm an American. So you know, I may have African ancestry, but I'm born here. And I have a right not just as a veteran, but I have a right, according to the Constitution, to everything that it says in it.
That's
And
right.
so that's what we want. And that's what we should be struggling for. That's what we should be fighting. We shouldn't even have to struggle for your rights.
But out of curiosity, I just jumping in here. Do you feel like realistically and really, and this is actually even to our audience, I want them to think about this as I ask you directly, that people inside and outside the African American community actually believe that this is still a problem? Or do they feel that this has been fully rectified by civil rights and by affirmative action and by other things that have been put in place. Do you think that outside and inside the black community, they think that this is still a problem, being born black per se?
Well, I can tell you this from my research that the black community says, hey, it still is a problem. We just recognize the passing of Rodney King. It's still a problem. So no, it's outside it. No, there are whites, there are other races that recognize the struggles of African Americans. So no, I would say no. I mean, no, they recognize that there is still a problem, and there's still a problem. We're not. I believe you were saying earlier before I came in here about the color blindness, but we need to have a color conscience. There needs to be there needs to be an understanding that we need to recognize that, hey, this segment of the population, that only represents 13%, but in our prisons represent 40%. We need to recognize. So there has to be a color conscience where that is concerned.
That very good point. We're with Ramon Roane, the author of Handicap, Born Black in America. Dre, think we could take a picture of that and put it up on our Facebook? Yeah, Dre, she's got the technology to do it. We were talking about that earlier. She could knock that out in the next 60 seconds or so. But, this conversation is funny. Even as Kevin earlier, we talked about post-racial, as we know that was just
high hopes, man.
Yeah.
Hopes.
Kevin had lofty hopes. This goes back to after Obama was elected, that we had entered a period that, we could get some of this garbage out of here. We've got up on the plateau. Equality. However, no, not so fast. Not so fast. We've probably seen in the past 4 years more of a rising up of that ugly head of hatred. Right. That slithering snake that is all the stuff that's been going on. Then we don't know how many years before the last 4, but it's like things bubbled up again, which was probably a good thing. Even though it doesn't feel good, it doesn't look good. Oftentimes it makes you feel something else, but reality check. We're not there yet. Go ahead.
If I may.
Yes, sir.
I understand why we're not. This is my, I guess, reason why we're still there. 1964, we passed the Civil Rights Act. We passed the Civil Rights in 1964.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in 1964, we still set in the same type of judges that we were putting in 1964. We're still putting them in today. Okay, right. Now, when it comes down to race relations and discrimination on the workplace, you will often find that when African American, they'll say, man, it's hard to prove racism. Well, it is going to be hard to prove racism.
Yeah.
But now the University of Pittsburgh did a study, and the white judges that heard black defendants or black discrimination cases, only those cases, especially on the discrimination cases, only 19% won when faced before a white judge. When faced before a black judge, 46% won their case. Now, if justice is supposed to be blind, you would think that it shouldn't matter the color of the judge.
The judge, yeah.
Now, in 1979, Judge Ballou out of Texas, he was being confirmed, and in 1973, they authored the Code of Conduct for judges, that they're not to be a member of an invidiously discriminating organization. Well, Judge Ballou was a member of an invidiously organization, and his response to, like, hey, you're a member of this organization, and he said, and I'm quoting here.
Okay.
And what Judge Ballou said, that no N-word ever applied for membership. Now, if you were going before that judge, okay, and your race discrimination case in the workplace, and remember, you're a part of 1.3 million. If you go before that judge, do you really think that you're going to get treated fairly?